milele, nina Mungu wetu milele milele. Tutaimba sifa zake mwana kondoo, tukiwa tumevikwa taji za ushindi. Tutaimba sifa zake mwana kondoo, tukiwa tumevikwa taji za ushindi. Tutacheza na mwana simba, haleluya. Tutaruka ruka kama ndama, haleluya. Tutacheza na mwana simba, haleluya. Tutaruka ruka kama ndama, haleluya. Na kisha tutazunguka meza ya kioo, tukila vinono vile vya mbinguni.
Tena nawakaribisha kuweza kuendelea na vipindi vingine. Kwa hivyo tunataka kujiandaa tuweze kuomba tunapoanza kipindi cha uimbaji kwa muda mfupi, alafu tuweze kuingia Bible study. Kwa hivyo popote mahali tulipo, naomba kwamba tuweze kunyenyekea na tuombe tunapoanza. Baba, katika jina la Yesu tunakushukuru kwa wema wako. Kwa pamoja nasi tangu asubuhi hadi masaa haya, jina lako litukuzwe. Tunaingia katika masaa mchana tena katika kipindi kingine kwa pamoja nasi tunapoendelea kujumuika pamoja na kuwa na ushirika. Asante pamoja nasi, waamana pamoja nasi tutakapomaliza, maana tumeomba tukiamini katika jina la Yesu na Bwana Mwokozi wetu. Amina. Kwa sasa ningependa kumwalika Korista aje tuimbe nyimbo mbili ndipo mzungumzaji aweze kuingia katika topic ya discussion ya siku ya leo, ili kwamba tuendelee kubarikiwa tunapokuwa pale nyumbani. Kwa hivyo unapoendelea kusikiza na baada ya kutazama, naamini ya kwamba endelea kukua karibu, maana tunafahamiana. Kwa hivyo kwa sasa namwalika Korista ili kwamba aweze kutuendesha katika kipindi hiki katika nyimbo mbili, ndipo mzungumzaji aweze kuingia katika sehemu hii. Karibu sana.
Pumzi ya uhai inapotoweka mwili ukibaki peke yake, pale pale tukiwa tumelala, neno lasema tumekufa. Pale pale tukiwa tumelala, neno lasema tumekufa. Kifo umetutenga na wazazi, umetutenga na watoto wetu, wapendwa wengi wamelala, wanasubiri ufufuo.
Happy Sabbath. Happy day. Tunashukuru Mungu kwa mchana hii njema tunapoenda kumsifu katika uimbaji. Tunyenyekee tupate ombi alafu tuanze. Tunaomba. Mtakatifu Baba yetu aishiye mbinguni, tunakushukuru kwa wema na fadhili zako. Asante kwa mchana huu wa leo wa Sabato. Asante kwa uhai ambao umetukirimia bure. Tunapoenda kukusifu kupitia uimbaji, tunaomba tusamehe dhambi na makosa zetu, ili tunapokusifu upokee sifa zetu. Wale ambao wako na shida mbalimbali ya magonjwa, ambao hawajapata chakula cha mchana, tunaombea Mungu wetu wapatie kulingana na mapenzi yako, hata ututumie hata sisi ili tuwasaidie wale ambao hawana. Zidi kutuonekania katika nchi yetu, katika dunia nzima. Tuponye na utusaidie katika mambo yote, katika jina la Yesu naomba na kuamini.
Amen.
Amen. Tunaanza na song number 54. 54 nyimbo za Kristo. Amen. Song number 3. Tunaomba ili mkaribishe Elda kwa Bible study. Tunaomba. Everlasting Master, we humble ourselves before you this wonderful afternoon of the Sabbath. Thank you for the gift of life. Thank you for allowing us to stand in front of your children. Father, I am to ask that, Lord, may you forgive me all that I've done against your will. And Father, may you accept our praise. And Lord, as our elder is coming to guide us through Bible study, I pray that, Lord, may you send the Holy Spirit to guide him. We pray for those who are watching from home, that Father, may you guide them and may you protect them, may you help them in all that they do, Father. We pray for our country, we pray for the whole world. At this time, Lord, we pray that may you help us, may you heal our land. You are telling us that if your people have been called by your name, will humble themselves and pray, then you will hear them and you will heal their land. Father, we want to humble ourselves, asking you for that may you heal us, may you heal our land, may you heal our country, may you heal the whole world, Lord. Those who have been affected, we pray for them, that Father, may you comfort them. Those who are sick, we pray that, Lord, may you give them healing power. We pray that, Father, may you guide us in this holy day of the Sabbath. Above all, now I pray that may you prepare us for your second coming. In Jesus' name I do pray, just and believe. Amen.
Thank you so much, Sister Luke, for that wonderful singing session. Good afternoon, friends and members of the church worshiping remotely and even in our sanctuaries. It is indeed a wonderful opportunity that the Lord has accorded us this afternoon again, that we may commune here and share the wonderful words of life, the precious truths. We will take a brief, or rather some small, short session to learn some principles in the Word, and we shall be blessed. My sharing this afternoon, I've entitled it Light Luggage. I know that luggage, when it comes to our minds, when we hear the word luggage, what comes to our minds is about burden or some heaviness or some weight. And it is a contrast if, again, we are calling it light. How can a luggage be light? And so I wanted us to learn something about light luggage, going about this world, the endeavors, the challenges, our undertakings, and everything that we go through in this world. How can we go about it in a way that we carry light luggage? We know that the world is already burdensome. The world is already having pressures and challenges that are so heavy to us. And as Christians, it is incumbent upon us to learn that we need to learn how to carry the light luggage. And so my discussion, or rather Bible study, will be based mainly in the book of Genesis, chapter 13. We'll learn a few verses from around verse 3 to 13. We'll contrast, we will see a story there and see on how to glean some principles out of it. And so, before even we get to the word, a story is told of a renowned writer. I think most of us have either heard of him or read his books. He's called Leo Tolstoy. In the year 1886, that is the other century, almost 2 centuries ago, Leo Tolstoy asked a question that, how much land does a person need? How much land does a person need? And he illustrated his question by telling a story of a young man called Park Home, who was given an offer. There was an incredible offer that was given, that he could have as much land as possible, provided that he could walk that distance within a day, and wherever the stretch or the distance he could cover within that one day could be the land that he will be given to own or to possess. And so Leo Tolstoy, in a classic tell, he starts from the break of the day at dawn. He wants to acquire or accumulate as much as he could. And so at dawn, he's anxious to obtain as much land as possible. He places some stakes or stays, some pegs along the way to make markings. And so he wants to mark the boundary of his land. So Falcon starts to walk, and this walk is very difficult because the farther he looks ahead, he notices that there is a grove of trees, there is some ravine, there is some swamp, there is some river, and so he tries to encircle it as much as he could to cover that, because he would want his homestead to have these meandering rivers and these nice sceneries. And so he wants a property that will make him happy. So he's desperate to reach his finish line, and he pushes his body beyond what his body could carry. It was beyond him. At the end of the day, at dusk, he gets tired, he collapses, and he dies. He dies at the finishing line. A servant picks a shovel, and starts to dig the land. Makes him a grave that is equivalent from his toe to his head, which is roughly around 6 feet, and buries him. And Leo Tolstoy finishes that illustration by revealing or establishing that the much land that a person requires or needs is just that grave site, that grave that you're buried in. And so, for me, the years I've lived, I've never had such an incredible offer. I've never had such an offer to be given a blank check to gather all that kind of land or all that good thing that you want. And sometimes, a good thing or small opportunities that have revealed to us that inclinations of the heart sometimes leads us astray and makes us lust even more. And so, I happened to grow up in some rural town in the southern Nyanza called Migori. And one time, when we were young, we had a neighbor teacher called an old retiree. He had a very big farm with some orchards of fruits, different fruit trees. And once in a while, we would go help with some house chores and farm issues and maybe some tasks in the home, knowing very well that we will be given some presents in form of fruits at the end of the day. And so you could try and give your best because you know that there is plentiful of fruits that will be given. And in a setting of many small kids, some older than the others, we will try to grab as much as possible because you're given an opportunity to have as much as you can carry. Some check to your parents back at home. And so you realize that the older ones will try to grab and even go beyond what you are told to take. Maybe you're told to take 2 paper bags or some two bags, but you will want to amass as much as possible. And it is possible that as human beings, we have that element of greed. Physically, how we were born as natural, we have that element of greed, and that was pure greed at that age in time. And so, my small sharing, someone this afternoon, that is going to open us to the Bible study, is about the light luggage that Leo Tolstoy illustrated by just the amount of land or the size of land that a person requires. And so, even this day, in practical terms, I would want us to demonstrate how you and me, or you and I, can travel through this life holding just very lightly to the things of the world, free from the distractions of the earthly things, treasures, and how we can live our lives with the light luggage. And so, let us contrast our story, the decisions that some 2 gentlemen made, that is Abraham and Lot, to uncover biblical principles traveling with light luggage. And so I would like us to go straight to the book of Genesis chapter 13. Probably we can start it from the first verse, Genesis chapter 13. We'll be reading Genesis chapter 13, from the first verse, it says that, "And Abraham went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the south. And Abraham was very rich in cattle and silver, and in gold. And he went on his journeys from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hal, and to the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And there Abraham called on the name of the Lord. And Lot also, which went with Abraham, had flocks, and herds, and tents. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abraham's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelled then in the land. And Abraham unto Lot, and Abraham said unto Lot, Let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we be brethren. It is not the whole land before thee. Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right, then I will go to the left. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, and it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves the one from the other. Abraham dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of plain, and pitched his tent towards Sodom. Verse 13, But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. Now we notice that in the beginning of the chapter, that Abraham was a wealthy man. And in verse 2, we are being told that Abraham was very rich in livestock, in silver and in gold. Lot also had been blessed. In fact, these people were starting on the same footing. There was no advantage that Abraham had that Lot did not have. And so both of them were wealthy. And they had servants. Both of them had a bright future. But we are seeing differences in character, or differences in desires of the heart and how they're using it. When you get to verse 7 is telling us that, And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abraham's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle, and the Canaanite and Perizzite dwelled there in the land. We are realizing that in verse 7, there's a strife that is breaking. There's some wars and some kind of kuzozana, people ugomvi unaanza kutokea. And so I'm imagining that in the morning, because they were looking for pasture, the struggle that was here was about how to feed their cattle and how to water them and where they could take them, because I think now the Lord was like blessing them and they were expanding their territory. And so I'm imagining that every day in the morning, probably wale wafugaji ama wafanyikazi wa Lot, maybe they were tiptoeing, trying to wake up early, not even setting alarm, but so setting alarm so that they could go secretly and go to the first greener and fleshy part of the pasture. And probably the following day, Abraham's herdsmen were also doing the same. And so it was like a competition of who will go first or who will get the best place. And so the fighting of natural resources was common during these times, the biblical times. Because we realize that even in Genesis chapter 26, we are reading about Isaac. Isaac and the servants, they're digging a well. They're digging a well because they wanted to water. They were living in a desert. And they want to water their camels, they want to water their cattle. And so the issue of securing natural resources, we are seeing it today in some communities. giving us challenges, and even not natural resources in the rural areas. Even in our setting in the modernity, everyone wants to accumulate and grab and hoard as much as possible to secure maybe the future of the family. And so we are realizing that Isaac's servants, they dig another well, and the same thing happened over and over again. And the third well was done, and finally we are seeing that it was uncontested. And so Isaac told his servants that now the Lord has blessed me. That is in verse 22, I believe. That now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. Isaac had learned the lesson from his father Abraham, that in order for God's continued blessing, the strife has to stop. God does not dwell with his chaos. And so I see most of us, maybe back in the village, we have neighbors, and probably there's a piece of land that you really want maybe to extend, or someone wants to extend, or you are born so many people in a family. And a very small stripe of land brings strife. But in most cases, you will bear me witness that you head nowhere with that strife. And you continue living in that kind of ukorofishana, it all ends in curses. And so Abraham knew very well that for the Lord to bless, you have to let some of these things in the world to go. And even Isaac learned that strife and Lord and blessing don't go together. They are not relatives and friends in any way. And so, in order for God to continue blessing Abraham, had passed this message to Isaac through actions. And so we are seeing the strife has to stop. And for that to happen, more space now was required. Abraham is now making a proposal to the nephew. He's making a proposal to Lot. And he's telling that, please separate from me. Separate. If you want to take the right, I will take the left. If you want to take the south, I'll go to the north. Because Abraham demonstrates three character qualities or characteristics here that are the first step to travel with the light luggage. That first, he was generous. Abraham was generous. He gave Lot first choice. There is no point of haggling or struggling over things. Let it be easy. Make things appear so easy as a brethren, to a brethren. And as someone who God has called and has blessed, sometimes we have to make decisions that appear stupid, but that to the blessing, that to the benefit of our salvation. And so Abraham, being generous, gives Lot the first choice. And Abraham, being the senior partner here, he let his associate, which is Lot here, make the first election choice. And there was no drawing of straws, there was no casting of lots, there was no balloting here. He made it pure and genuine from his heart. And they had to live out the principle highlighted by Paul in Philippians chapter 2, verse 3 to 4, that says, let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind. Let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for his own interest, but also for the interest of others. Paul is telling us in Philippians that let us also esteem others high. If we realize that someone is not as endowed or blessed as you are, maybe you are strong in character, maybe you are strong in terms of personality, and maybe you really know how to weather the challenges, and you have a brethren, probably you have the same kind of level in terms of resources, but he's weak in terms of personality, or maybe he's weak in terms of faith. Let us not esteem ourselves to take advantage now, but try to raise them, try to also motivate them to grow with us and make them. It is not a matter of competition. Let us also help and esteem our brethren above and to feel, and of course with an intention of growing them in faith. And so Abraham is living a life of generosity. Later, we are realizing that later when Lot and his family, along with the Sodom and Gomorrah, with the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, they were captured by foreign kings. Again, we are seeing Abraham chasing them down and is rescuing them with his army, with his soldiers, and he protected them. That he did not revenge. Abraham in that did not even try to pay back because Lot had given him trouble because he made him whom he was. And so when the king of Sodom came out to thank Abraham, he notices, we want to notice some response that Abraham is giving there in verse 21 to 24, chapter 14 now. And then the king said, give me the persons and take the goods for yourself. But Abraham is in contrary saying that, he's telling the king, I have raised my hand to the Lord, God most high, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will take nothing from a thread to a sandal strap, that I will not take anything that is yours. Let you should say that I have made Abraham rich. We are seeing here that these people, the Anakites, they are called the antithesis of Abraham's generosity amidst these people. We are seeing that it was Lot's greed. Lot wanted the best for himself. Not only did he want it, but he actually took it. He actually placed his hands. It was like he was like grabbing it by force. Because if you are given choices and you are looking for the best, and that is actually what brought problems to Lot, because the affluence of Sodom, the plains of Sodom and Gomorrah, and the 5 cities attracted him. The pleasures of this world, it was so attractive, and so he went himself there, and literally, he did not seek for the wisdom and the counsel, but he went for it. He took it, and so in verse 10 to 11 of Genesis 13, and Lot lifted his eyes and saw all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered, everywhere like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as you go towards Zoar. Then Lot chose for himself all the plain of Jordan. The first principle to free yourself from the hold of this world is to travel with a light luggage. It is to be generous with others. Giving, we are being told that, is the antidote to greed. The only medicine to undo greed is giving. When you give, it is not like it's benefiting the receiver, but the giver. It trains you. It is a medicine. When you give, it removes that greed and that kind of gluttony in you, because it is only by emptying that you get to be filled, because the vessel now gets that opportunity to have the right content in it, and it is like a conduit. It's like a channel where now the blessings flow through. And so, greed is the natural tendency of every fallen human being. Our first inclination is to look out for number one. Every one of us here, every one of us back at home, all the children in school, everyone wants to be number one. Whether it is in sports, whether it is in academics, whether it is in any selection, be it in leadership, everyone always wants to push to be number one. We want to push ourselves to the front of the line, and it is not bad. In God's kingdom, however, the last will be the least. It is now the reverse. In the principle of the kingdom of heaven, the last becomes the least. Are you a generous person? Do you share with others the blessings that God has given you? Or it is just accumulating more and acquiring more and wanting to always be number one? Does it bless the name of the Lord? Does it benefit and edify Christ? Does it really glorify God in the pursuit of all this that we are looking for in this world? So there is a second character trait that I am looking at from Abraham in this contrast with Lot that helped Abraham to carry light luggage. Abraham had faith that God's provision was enough. Abraham had faith that God's provision was enough. Abraham knew that regardless which direction he chose, even if it was the more productive land, God will take care of his needs. And that is something that we really need to learn as Christians, that God will take care of our needs. Whatever direction, whatever circumstance you are placed in, if we put God first and we tell God that, God, please use me. Make something out of this. Qualify these imperfections now to be to the glory of your name, then God will make use of it. And even if it was the more productive land, Abraham knew God would take care of his needs. Notice that when Abraham's connection with God in verse 4 of Genesis 13, and he went, it says, and he went on his journey to the place of the altar which he had made there at first. And there Abraham called the name of the Lord. Abraham's connection with God gave him confidence that God will lead him on his journey. Whatever God provided will be enough. It is the connection between us and God that matters most. In the resources, in the positions, in all that God gives us to take care of as stewards today. And this is in follow-up to our teaching in the morning. The connection with God in all that we do will just be enough, will make us feel the contentment. After Lot chose the best land, notice how God responded to Abraham in verse 14 to 17. I'm going to read it. It says, and the Lord said to Abraham, after Lot had separated from him, lift your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward, southward, eastward, and westward. For all the land which you see I give to you and your descendants forever. And I will make your descendants as the dust of the earth, so that if a man could number the dust of the earth, then your descendants also could be numbered. Arise, walk in the land through its length and its width, for I give it to you. Nothing was excluded. It was entirely the whole world. This is a promise, and it is a sure promise, a covenant that God made with Abraham. You see, the response when you have connection with God surpasses, goes beyond our expectations. And so God gives him. It is all his, northward, southward, eastward, westward. In contrast, the very next thing we hear about Lot is that he and his family are captured by foreign kings. Abraham was content to wait for the city which has foundations, whose builder is and maker is God. On this earth, Abraham lived in temporary tents that were moved from place to place. He never set down roots here on earth. On this earth, his focus was always toward his heavenly reward. And so my question I'm posing to us is that, are we setting our treasures, are we setting our foundations on the city which its foundations and the builder and the maker is God? Or is all that we could think of and acquire and establish all ends here, and it is here and here now, as if we are of this world? What is our motivation in all that we are pursuing? Lot, on the other hand, was allured by the convenience, the excitement of the cities of the plain. Although the land was desirable, we read that the men of Sodom were exceedingly wicked and sinful against the Lord. That is, if you read the book of the chapter we are reading, chapter 13 of Genesis, if you read verse 13, it says, but the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. At first, Lot tried, of course, to distance himself from the vices of Sodom, but he only pitched his tent toward Sodom, just toward, a little, just at the edge. You see, that is how sin entices us. That I'm not really into it, but just somewhere around. You see, it's just like kidogo too, but that is how sin entices us. And so, that is in verse 12 of the previous verse. So finally, Lot is finding himself sat right in the gate of Sodom. In Genesis chapter 19 verse 1, if you find time you can read, as one of its business leaders. And so just the allure of sitting, just pitching the tent just next to Sodom in verse 12, we are finding himself slowly by slowly, finally finding himself being at the gate and now being one of the business leaders who takes charge of Sodom. And ultimately, Lot's decisions will destroy his Sodom family. When Sodom was destroyed, Lot managed to escape with only his 2 daughters and wife. Lot and his family they were pulling along heavy luggage. And that is the contrast. They were pulling along heavy luggage. They were bound by their life of luxury. In fact, their heart was in Sodom. They were living as if they did not want to live. In fact, Lot had a challenge convincing the family or taking along the family. We are even told in the scriptures that the wife of Lot was taken aback by the allures of the luxuries and the pleasures and the convenience. And so you notice in Genesis chapter 19, verse 15 and 16, when the morning dawned, the angels urged Lot to hurry, saying, "Arise, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city." And while he lingered, the men took hold of his hand, his wife's hand, and the hand of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful to him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. The earthly pull of Sodom was so great that his wife disobeyed the command of the angels and turned around to look, but instantly turning into a pillar of salt. The contrast between Lot and Abraham should be a great lesson to us, children of God, that an earthly focus versus a heavenly focus. Where do you place where do you cast your lot? Where do you make your choice? That would I have chosen any differently? For instance, you should be asking yourself that question. I should be asking myself that question. Would I chosen any differently than Lot? My own tendency is to become distracted, building up my kingdom here on this earth, desiring more material luxuries, something bigger and better. It's a question I need to honestly face. How is it with you? Are you in the rat race of life? Dissatisfied with the blessings that God has already given? We always want more. When you acquire this, you want the next one. It's a rat race that we are never getting out of, because we are not contented. It's like we are questioning God. It's like we are pinning God down and telling him, "God, you are not providing enough for me. I'm not happy with what you are giving me." And so, chasing more after more, we chase more money, we're chasing more things, we're chasing more pleasure. As Lot discovered, it's a trap and will eventually destroy you. When God calls, are you willing to leave it all behind? Do you travel with a light luggage? Abraham did. I would like us to jump to the book of Hebrews and see something here. The book of Hebrews, the chapter is 11, the hallmark of faith. Hebrews 11, verse 8 to 10, the Bible is saying that by faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed. And he went out not knowing whither he went. By faith, he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, and heirs with him out of the same promise. Verse 10, for he looked for a city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. The Lord is telling us that the final key to traveling with the light luggage is found in this verse. Hebrews chapter 8, verse 10 and chapter 11, verse 8 to 10. That focus on God's future reward. Our focus should primarily be on God's future reward. This promise brings hope to millions of destitute human beings today. It brings faith and hope even to the destitute people. Even in this pandemic, people have shattered hopes. People have hopes that have been destroyed. Most of us, even in the church, we are living as if we do not have a future. We do not have a God who holds our future. And so, for me, this is a great promise that poverty, disease, injustice, these ones may be experiences in this life, but there's a life in heaven ahead. And a crown and a mansion will be mine. And so, I want to call upon us today that let us learn the principles of traveling in the light luggage. Generosity, the base, it is the antidote. It removes greed out of us and gluttony. That we need to know that strife does not help, that we need to make peace with our brethren, that we need to esteem others higher and also make them excel in as much as we excel. We need to have finally a connection with God. And when we have a connection with God, surely we will be having a reward, a future reward, and knowing that our ultimate desire and purpose and focus is to have that future that is based and built on God. Otherwise, may God bless us, even as we learn these principles of stewardship, the principles of traveling with light luggage in this world, even in these during perilous times, that the Lord our God is able to protect us. The same God, the same God that provides for us when we are in need, is also the same God that sustains us when we are not having anything or when we are in great need. When we have abundance, He is the same God who has provided. Can we be channels and tools of that blessings pass through, so that we can also bless others with the blessings that God has given us? And if it is anything that is bringing strife, that is bringing chaos, then think twice about it. It is high time to really look at it introspectively if God is really into it. If it is resources, if it is wealth, if it is whatever accumulation of anything that we want in this world that is taking our focus and minds away from the Lord, surely it is not something that is approved of God. May God bless us. May God reveal to us that which He wants us to have to the glory of His name. Because all of us are just stewards. We are caretakers. Tell your colleague, your friend, your housemate, wherever you are a caretaker. You are a caretaker of God's resources. All of us are caretakers. May we be good caretakers. May we be good stewards. Let us find time, learn, read the book of Genesis chapter 13, the whole of it, the story of Abraham and Lot, and contrast and get the principles. And let us know very well that we only need the land that we need. All this, you hear somebody having pieces of land that you can't even take stock. You can't even know the beginning and the end. But all we need in this world is just that 6 feet from your head to your toe, where your body can perfectly fit. May God bless us, even as we continue with the other sections of the program. I will invite us to sing final hymn, SDA hymnals, in number 327, even as we finish that session when we pray. Hymn number 327, and the program, probably you can come and we sing together. Song number 327, SDA hymnal, I'd rather have Jesus. It's happening. You can do that. SDA hymnal 327. I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold. That's it. I'd rather have Jesus than silver or gold. I'd rather have Jesus. We'd rather have you than all the riches and gold, than all the gold and silver this world affords. We'd rather have you, Lord, because with you we have a life like it. With you we can travel in this world with a peace of mind and assurance knowing that our Lord provides, our Lord sustains, our Lord keeps, and above all, Lord, we have a home, we have a city whose build and maker is you. Father, may you teach us to be contented. May you teach us to only go for that which glorifies your name. Be with us in the remaining house of the Sabbath. We pray in Jesus' name. The opportunity that God has given us, we can continue singing. We want to have this request hour. I don't know whether we can be able to get the request and live with our technicians. As we do that, let's do 174. 174. Windows are Crystal. Sijulia toka kukuja tebe. Sijulia toka kukuja mchana au usiku. Labda saa ya alasiri, mengine ni alfajiri. Kutuambia tuwe tayari tayari. Ili jambo atukute tuwe tuko Kwa kweli tunapesa kutengenezea tutakuja kuchukua namba 100 Ooh.